Hello and welcome to Capacity TV at Capacity Middle East 2025. I'm here today with Joe Apper, VP Sales of EMEA at Rivada Space Networks, and Ronald van der Breggen, Chief Commercial Officer at Rivada. Thank you for joining us today, guys.
Thanks for having us. Wonderful.
Joe, let's start with you. How do you see LEO satellites changing the dynamics of hybrid networking?
Well, I think the timing couldn't be any better. It's perfect in the way of which innovation is happening with LEO and network architecture. In particular, if you look at what we're doing by introducing a radical rethink on what a LEO network needs to be, looks like today. And by that I mean we are from day one looking at installing laser links on board with the ISL links from day one, which means you have the capability to keep your your data in space for longer, over longer distances. And also by removing the need for gateways. By eliminating the gateway, you have then the additional advantage of low latency, high security. And then when you look at how do you basically combine that as a benefit for fiber and subsea cables in that particular market, you can see an immediate benefit. And we are having very successful conversations here with the fiber operators and owners of subsea cables as well, because now with this architecture, more than at any time before, what we're offering is a proposition that could never be realized. You know, the old traditional VSATs, in particular when you look at geo satellites, simply couldn't give you what we can provide today with our LEO network, due to latency and due to the fact that they didn't operate lasers on those satellites. So again, with those two key things in particular, and layer on top of that as well the benefits of security, we can sit down and demonstrate to the industry, this particular vertical, the benefits of combining both solutions to deliver resiliency in some cases. In other cases, prime communications, because we can simply build out faster and more cost effectively than they can by deploying more fiber. And as well, we can demonstrate in some cases certain verticals will benefit from being faster than fiber is today. From a mid to long distance, the laws of physics with light being faster through a vacuum genuinely means that certain markets, and we've spoken about the capital market in particular, will benefit from having the low latency ability.
Ronald, I want to come to you for this next one. How are you different to the major players in the space like Starlink?
It's true that there's a lot going on in space right now, and Starlink certainly has done a phenomenal job in making a name for themselves. So for that reason alone, it's cool to talk about satellites again, also in the telecom space. There is, however, a very big difference. And sometimes I jokingly say, when we go to shows like this, we can explain what we do in 2 minutes. When we are at a satellite show, it's a lot more difficult. And the reason is indeed, for Starlink to go out to a satellite show, it's very easy to explain that what they do is to grab traffic from far and remote locations and bring it into an internet relay station so that they can connect to the internet. So Starlink is at the edge of a network wanting to provide internet services. So they're effectively like an internet service provider. When we go to shows like this, we can very easily explain, as what Joe was trying to do, to help people understand that if satellites in space are now not really satellites, but they are routers being fully connected, as Joe explained, fully connected, that we have a complete mesh of routers around the Earth, fully meshed with laser connectivity over which we run a network protocol. So now for people, particularly at this show, telecom operators who are so used to connecting into one box and then through there be able to connect to the entire world, the same now also applies to what we do. You connect to one satellite and you can terminate your circuit anywhere between the North and the South Pole because we see the entire Earth. So you literally go up, you go across, you find the satellite that's over the destination and you come down there and you terminate your circuit in that very location. So that is a very different value proposition from merely picking up traffic from a far and remote place and connecting that into the internet, and then let the internet or a VPN or a corporate network take care of the rest. So it is this network view that we have, this network architecture that we deploy, that makes us so uniquely different from anything else that's going on in space. Because all the other satellites, no matter what orbit they are in, I mean, they used to be very high up, like geostationary orbits. They came down in what we call mid-Earth orbits. They're now in LEO, low Earth orbits. During that whole transition down to Earth, basically, they kept doing what they originally did, which was to pick up traffic and get it down into a gateway. We stopped doing that and took the telecom approach, which is you connect into one, you get access to everything, and that way, like Joe explained, we go across the top, we physically separate it from any other type infrastructure terrestrially, and that comes with a great security advantage that nobody else can offer.
Super important and timely to hear what you guys are doing.
It's like Joe said, it's extremely timely that we're coming out with a story, because there's certain things going on in geopolitical situation that makes this a very compelling story.
For sure. What's also timely is how satellite comes to the rescue during natural disasters and large-scale disruptions. Joe, I want to know, how do you ensure scalability and reliability when it comes to those situations?
Well, quite simply, once we deploy our satellites into orbit, we have a global network. So it really doesn't matter where the incident now is across the globe, whether it's man-made or natural disaster. Once we deploy our satellites, we're fully covered. We are global. The only thing you will need in addition to that, quite simply, are 2 terminals to provide a point-to-point connectivity. Now, we can go beyond that because we're layer 2 carrier Ethernet. We can do very clever things in terms of building out architecture. But to connect a country or to connect a region that has suffered a natural or a man-made disaster, just bring a terminal in. And that is then a private network, which is highly secure, and immediately then will bypass the issues that situation will see. And by that I mean, typically when you do have a situation that is again man-made or natural, you'll lose your telco network pretty much instantaneously. You'll probably lose your fiber connectivity as well if it was a country that is serving the comms structure. Examples and discussions we've had will look at natural disasters that occur in Hawaii or the potential risk to a country like Taiwan, and you're looking for alternatives. Again, once we deploy our network and we're in space and we have that global coverage, we can bring an immediate answer and a solution to any of those situations. So for us, it's really a case now of cracking on, launching, getting into orbit, doing our test phase, and then beginning to offer services. Yeah. Right now, I mean, the feedback we've had is wonderful in those examples, to the point whereby if we had this built yesterday, they would be using it today. They would be testing it today. They would be ensuring that they had a plan and a resiliency path in the event of such a situation. So we're keen. We're going to spend the bulk of this year pushing forward with a project full steam ahead, looking to implement and be ready to offer a solution that's being crying out for.
Off the back of that, Ronald, tell us about your distribution model and how do you sell that to customers?
Great question. To latch on to what Joe was saying earlier, so with regards to the cable situation and being able to restore. So one thing that I think is important, which is why we have a distribution channel that also goes through telecom operators, is for these telecom operators to work with their end customers and really assess what type of traffic is running on that network, and then make a distinction between the supercritical from the important, from the maybe not so important, because it's not like you can, if an undersea cable is cut, and there is a couple of pairs that are being cut, and then with wave division multiplexing, there's terabytes of data on there. It's not like with a click of a finger you can just hop on a satellite and get that restored. So what will be important is that these telecommunication organizations work with their end users to find what is the critical components and then use technologies such as SD-WAN to make sure they put that traffic on the right network, so to speak. And that's what we're already doing with enterprises, where they say, okay, all my locations are already fibered up. I don't need any satellite infrastructure to get to that remote location or anything. What I need is an infrastructure that I know will continue to work, even if somebody, God forbid, goes into a cable hub and starts pulling cables, or if somebody puts a shovel in the ground in the wrong place, or whatever else you can think of. And that's the discussion that we are really looking forward to having with telecom operators who, to answer your question, indeed are part of our distribution channel. We are a wholesaler, so we're not going to run around with antennas, we're not going to run around in customer premises building these networks. We want to work with partners who see an opportunity to work with their end users on building networks in which there's a good categorization and classification of traffic, such that the most important traffic, there's room for that to be put on a satellite network, which comes with the advantages that we discussed. And in doing so, they can continue to hold on to that end user relationship. They can continue to manage those and install those network and do first line support. And we will then support them by making available all the circuitry that we need to provide within the constellation to get these networks up and running. So the distribution model is to work with resellers, and telecom operators, like I mentioned, are a very high priority on our list. But we're also working with those that are very specific to certain, vertical markets like oil and gas or maritime or aero. You got, some really knowledgeable partners in that particular segment that we're also working with. But for enterprise and government markets, which we believe is going to be the bulk of our business, we're really looking forward to working with telecom operators and other second operators who make it their business to provide end-to-end solutions for customers' networks in the wide area network space. Yep.
Super interesting and timely discussion, as I said, guys. Ronald, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today on Capacity TV.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you
for the invite.
And thank you for watching.